Vanakkam Dohadevan, everyone. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. And I'll share the screen. Here we go. Continuing with Introduction to Hinduism. And tomorrow my schedule's a little tight for the Zoom satsang, so it reflects here. Tomorrow I need to finish about 9 a.m. Hawaii time and get to the Arudra Darshana Abhishekam by 9:10. So therefore I can't run late tomorrow. With that in mind, I need to keep both satsangs on at the same place in the introduction, in the material, otherwise it gets too confusing for me. So I anticipate that today's presentation is a little short for those reasons. And if you read the message about Zooming tomorrow, what we're Zooming tomorrow live is the Homa. So that's 6 a.m. Hawaii time, midnight Singapore time. Not a very good time for a Homa. But we're Zooming live not Zooming, but live streaming the Homa part, which probably that'll take about an hour and a half. The Abhishekam part starts at 9 a.m. Hawaii time, and since we don't photograph Nataraja, we don't live stream that one. So that's what's being live streamed tomorrow. And in our presentation, Introduction to Hinduism, first section, Hinduism's unique value today, and reminder on the approach. Everyone knows these ideas. Maybe you've forgotten one or two, but you certainly learned it at one point. So the idea is, if you're giving a presentation or you're talking to someone about Hinduism, you can keep these points in mind. If you forgot about some, then you'll be reminded. And it's also possible you'll get some new insights into some of the ones you're familiar with as well. So that's what we're hoping for. It's not supposed to be advanced material. There are good reasons for Hindus and non-Hindus alike to study and understand the nature of Hinduism. The vast geographical and cultural expanses that separate continents, peoples, and religions are becoming increasingly bridged as our world grows closer together. Revolutions in communications, the internet, business, travel, and global migration are making formerly distant peoples neighbors, sometimes reluctantly. It is crucial, if we are to get along in an increasingly pluralistic world, that Earth's peoples learn about and appreciate the religions, cultures, viewpoints, and concerns of their planetary neighbors. The Sanatana Dharma, with its sublime tolerance and belief in the all-pervasiveness of divinity, has much to contribute in this regard. Nowhere on earth have religions lived and thrived in such close and harmonious proximity as in India. For thousands of years, India has been a home to followers of virtually every major world religion. The exemplar of tolerance toward all paths, it has offered a refuge to Jews, Zoroastrians, Sufis, Buddhists, Christians, and non-believers. Today, over 100 million Indians are Muslim, for the most part magnanimously accepted by their majority Hindu neighbors. So all of these population numbers are from the past. They haven't been updated to what they actually are today. Such religious amity has occurred out of an abiding respect for all genuine religious pursuits. The oft-quoted axiom that conveys this attitude is ekam sat aneka patantaha, Truth is one, paths are many. What can be learned from the Hindu land that has given birth to Buddhism, Sikhism, and Jainism, and has been a generous protector of all other religions? India's original faith offers a rare look at a peaceful, rational, and practical path for making sense of our world, for gaining personal spiritual insight, and as a potential blueprint for grounding our society in a more spiritually rewarding worldview. Hinduism boasts teachings and practices reaching back 8,000 years and more, its history dwarfing most other religions. In fact, there is no specific time in history when it began. It is said to have started with time itself. There we have an excavation. To emphasize the relative ages of the major religions and the antiquity of Hinduism, Raimon Panikkar, author of the Vedic Experience, cleverly reduced them to proportionate human years. So this is really interesting material, with each 100 years of history representing 1 year of human life. Viewed this way, Sikhism, the youngest faith, is 5 years old. Islam, the only teenager, is 14. Christianity just turned 20. Buddhism, Taoism, Jainism, and Confucianism are 25. Zoroastrianism, 26. Shintoism is in its late 20s. Judaism is a mature 37. Hinduism, whose birthday remains unknown, is at least 80 years old, the white-bearded grandfather of living spirituality on this planet, standing for 8,000. 80 means 8,000. Followers of this extraordinary tradition often refer to it as Sanatana Dharma, the eternal faith or eternal way of conduct, rejoicing in adding on to itself the contributions of every one of its millions of adherents down through the ages, brings to the world an extraordinarily rich cultural heritage that embraces religion, society, economy, literature, art, and architecture. Unsurprisingly, it is seen by its followers as not merely another religious tradition, but as a way of life and the quintessential foundation for human culture and spirituality. It is, to Hindus, the most accurate possible description of the way things are. Eternal truths, natural principles inherent in the universe that form the basis of culture and prosperity. Understanding this venerable religion allows all people to fathom the source and essence of human religiosity, to marvel at the oldest example of the eternal path that is reflected in all faiths. While 960 million Hindus live in India, well, outdated of course, forming 80% of the population, tens of millions reside across the globe and include followers from nearly every nationality, race, and ethnic group in the world. The U.S. alone is home to 2.4 million Hindus, roughly 2/3 of South Asian descent and 1/3 of other backgrounds, such as the Caribbean. Hindu scriptures. All major religions are based upon a specific set of teachings encoded in sacred scripture. Christianity has the Bible, for example, and Islam has the Quran. Hinduism proudly embraces an incredibly rich collection of scripture, in fact, the largest body of sacred texts known to man. The holiest and most revered are the Vedas and Agamas, two massive compendia of Shruti, that which is heard, revealed by God to illumined sages centuries and millennia ago. So that's an important word, Shruti, meaning that which is heard. And the next one coming up will be Smriti, that which is remembered. So for lots of Hindus, the only Shruti is the Vedas, but those who follow certain paths also have the Agamas, which are Shruti to them. So the Vedas is the common scripture of all Hindus, and then some also have Shruti consisting of the Agamas. It is said the Vedas are general and the Agamas specific. As the Agamas speak directly to the details of worship, yogas, mantra, tantra, temple building, and such. The most widely known part of the Vedas, of course, are the Upanishads, which form the more general philosophical foundations of the faith. Interesting point on this. I've seen Hindus in their 20s struggling with translations of Vedic hymns, not particularly relating well to the English translation. So my comment in such a situation is the hymns aren't designed for meaning, they're designed to be chanted. They produce a certain vibration, and the meaning is secondary to the vibration they create when they're chanted. So that's important to keep in mind if somebody complains about the translations of the Vedas. They don't seem particularly relevant to today's world. They're not supposed to be. They're supposed to be chanted in Sanskrit. Okay, then we get to Smriti, remembered, equally vast, the most prominent and widely celebrated of which is, what do you think the most prominent and widely celebrated Smriti is? The Bhagavad Gita, coming up in a second. So we have the Itihatas, Ramayana, Mahabharata, Puranas, and the most popular is Bhagavad Gita. So it's Smriti, it's not Shruti. So it's not supposed to be the only scripture someone uses, but sometimes Vaishnava groups are a bit aggressive in putting it forward. And of course, it's not a scripture of Smriti to Saivites. And that's a good point that this text doesn't make. Though Vedas are shared by everyone, and then Agamas, being Shruti, are shared by those of that denomination, the Smriti are different for different Hindu subsects. So Saiva Siddhanta has its own Smriti. For example, Tirumarai is Smriti to Saiva Siddhantans, but not to Vaishnavas. The Vedic arts and sciences, including Ayurveda, astrology, music, dance, architecture, statecraft, domestic duty, and law, are reflected in an assembly of texts known as Vedangas and Upavedas. So that in itself shows how Hinduism is not simply a part of life, it covers everything in life, because these topics, including medicine, Ayurveda, are part of the scriptures. They're not separate from religion. Moreover, through the ages, God-realized souls sharing their experience have poured forth volume upon volume that reveal the wonders of yoga and offer passionate hymns of devotion and illumination. Creation of Hindu scripture continues to this day as contemporary masters reiterate the timeless truths to guide souls on the path to divinity. So that's Swami Chinmayanandaji there. Created some great texts of his own. Clear sign that a person is a Hindu is that he embraces Hindu scripture as his guide and solace through life. While the Vedas are accepted by all denominations, each lineage defines which other scriptures are regarded as central and authoritative for its followers. Further, each devotee freely chooses and follows one or more favorite scriptures within his tradition, be it a selection of Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, the Tirumandram, or the writings of his own guru. So in Hinduism, there's a lot of difference from Hindu to Hindu as to what scriptures they consider important. Gurudeva liked Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, as did Yogaswami. This free-flowing, diversified approach to scripture is unique to the Hindu faith. Scripture here, however, does not have the same place as it does in many other faiths. This is a really great point. For genuine spiritual progress to take place, its wisdom must not be merely studied and preached, but lived and experienced as one's own. This is saying in Hinduism, experience trumps Scripture. Memorizing Scripture is good, but it's supposed to lead to the experience of what the Scripture is talking about, such as inner light. We can memorize a beautiful verse about inner light that we're supposed to experience in meditation, but we need to experience it. So memorizing the Scripture is good, but it's only a preliminary step to experiencing it. And all religions aren't that way, is what this is saying. It's not trying to criticize them. It's just trying to show there's a difference. Nature of God. Let's see what it says. We made this point before. Some descriptions of Hinduism wrongly state that Hindus do not believe in a one supreme being, but worship a multiplicity of supreme gods. Most common being the misconception: Brahma the creator, Vishnu the preserver, and Shiva the destroyer, and there's no supreme being. In other words, there's three gods that's the highest level. There's no one deity above them, or they're not three parts of a one deity. To the Hindu, these are three aspects of the one supreme being. Indeed, with its vast array of divinities, Hinduism may, to an outsider, appear polytheistic, a term avidly employed as a criticism of choice, as if the idea of many gods were primitive and false. But ask any Hindu and he will tell you that he worships the one supreme being, just as do Christians, Jews, Muslims, and those of nearly all major faiths. And of course, in our Saiva tradition, Tenadudaya Sivane Potre Anatavarkum Irava Potre, is saying that he was worshipped as Shiva in the Southland, is worshipped elsewhere as Iravan, meaning the one supreme being. His Saiva calls God Shiva. We know this. Devi. And Hinduism is the only religion we know of where certain denominations consider the Supreme Being to be female, for those who are interested in that idea. Smarta Hindu worships as supreme one deity chosen from a specific pantheon of gods, and that's the concept of Ishta Devata, chosen deity. Vaishnavites, Vishnu, especially Krishna and Rama. So we know that. Thus, it is impossible to say all Hindus believe this or that. Some Hindus give credence only to the formless absolute reality as God. Others accept God as personal Lord and Creator. Some venerate God as male, others as female, while still others hold that God is not limited by gender, is an aspect of physical bodies. This freedom, we could say, makes for the richest understanding and perception of God. Hindus accept all genuine spiritual paths, from pure monism, which concludes that God alone exists, to theistic dualism, which asks, when shall I know His grace? Each soul is free to find his own way, whether by devotion, austerity, meditation, yoga, selfless service. God is unimaginably transcendent, unimaginably transcendent, yet ubiquitously immanent in all things. He is creator and He is the creation. He is not a remote God who rules from above, but an intimate Lord who abides within all as the essence of everything. There is no corner of creation in which God is not present. He is farther away than the farthest star and closest than our breath. If his presence were to be removed from any one thing, that thing would cease to exist. Crucial point often overlooked is that having one supreme God does not repudiate the existence of lesser divinities. Just as Christianity acknowledges great spiritual beings who dwell near God, such as the cherubim and seraphim, possessing both human and animal features. So sometimes Christians criticize Hindus for having deities with animal features, not knowing that in their own tradition there are secondary beings, angels so to speak, that have animal features in Christianity. So that's what this picture is showing. Christian cherubim. So Hindus revere Mahadevas, or great angels, who were created by the Supreme Lord and who serve and adore him. Each denomination worships the Supreme God and its own pantheon of divine beings. The elephant-faced Lord Ganesha is among the most popular and is perhaps the only deity worshipped by Hindus of all denominations. Jai Ganapati. They are gods and goddesses of strength, yoga, learning, art, music, wealth, and culture. There are also minor divinities, village gods and goddesses, who are invoked for protection, health, and such earthy matters as a fruitful harvest. That's a pretty tall Hanumanji there. So a story on that, we have time. I gave a talk at a Kumbhabhishekam in London, Devi Temple, and it was the public talk, meaning there was a lot of dignitaries, non-Hindu dignitaries there from the politics and business community. So I was trying to relate the temple to them and did a little research. I don't have the number with me here, but it's amazing how many churches there are in London to St. Michael. The question is, who is St. Michael? Well, St. Michael, for example, is different than St. Francis. St. Francis is a person who lived on earth. St. Michael never lived on earth. He's what's called an archangel. And there's churches to him, so they're invoking an archangel, which is the equivalent to us of a Mahadeva. There are even writings which equate St. Michael as being Lord Murugan, so we won't enter into that debate, but it's the same idea. Secondary deities supporting the Supreme Being, and they exist in religions such as Christianity. It's just they're not focused on very much, and lots of individuals in those religions don't know they exist. But if you ever have to defend there being a multiplicity of secondary gods, that would be the comparison. And there's six common archangels in Christianity. Oh, back we have the nature of the soul. Oh, what does Hinduism say about the soul? Who am I? That's a nice graphic. Where did I come from? Where am I going? Has been the core of all great religions and schools of philosophy throughout history. Hindu teachings on the nature of self are as philosophically profound as they are pragmatic. That's nicely said. We are more than our physical body, our mind, emotions, and intellect, with which we so intimately identify every moment of our life, but which are temporary, imperfect, and limiting. Definitely. True self is our immortal soul, the eternal, perfect, and unlimited inner essence, pure being of scintillating light, unseen by the human eye, undetectable by any of the human senses, which are its tools for living in this physical world. Our soul is the source of all our higher functions, including knowledge, will, and love. It is neither male nor female. The essence of our soul, which was never created, is eminent love and transcendent reality, and is identical and eternally one with God. So part of our soul is one with God, and part of our soul is not one with God. That's the teaching. Yoga Swami used to like to emphasize the oneness. He would ask the group, how many people are here, Swami? And of course the correct answer is one. The Vedas explain the soul is born and unfolds in a body with dreams and desires and the food of life. And then it is reborn in new bodies, in accordance with its former works. The quality of the soul determines its future body, earthly or airy, heavy or light. The Vedas teach that the divine resides in all beings. Our true spiritual essence is, like God, eternal, blissful, good, wise, and beautiful by nature. The joining of God and the soul is known as yoga. We spend so much of our time pursuing beauty, knowledge, and bliss in the world, not knowing that these objects of our desire are already within us as attributes of our own soul. We turn our focus within through worship and meditation, identifying with our true spiritual self. We can discover an infinite inner treasure that easily rivals the greatest wealth of this world. Hinduism is a mystical religion, leading the devotee to personally experience the truth within, finally reaching the pinnacle of consciousness, where the realization is attained that man and God are one. As divine souls, we are evolving into union with God through the process of reincarnation. And one of Gurudeva's ongoing themes in this area is it's already the case. You are already that which you seek. It's just you're not aware of that part of you. It's hidden from you. So you have to find it, so to speak. We are immortal souls living and growing in the great school of earthly-like experience in which we have lived many lives. Knowing this gives followers a great security, eliminating the fear and dread of death. So that's the idea of reincarnation. If you think you only have one life, it creates certain problems as you get older, regrets, etc. But if you realize you have lots of lives left, plenty of time to do what you didn't get done, or redo what didn't work out, eliminates the fear and dread of death. The Hindu does not take death to be the end of existence, as does the atheist, nor does he look upon life as a singular opportunity to be followed by eternal heavenly existence for those souls who do well, and by unending hell for those who do not. Death for the Hindu is the most exalted of experiences. A profound transition from this world to the next, simultaneously an end and a new beginning. So that's a simple way of explaining it. If someone is upset about death of another person, either a person that's close to them or not, all the person did was walk into another world. It's like walking into another room. It's just a room you can't enter. They're still the same person they were. They just don't have a physical body. But they're still the same. They haven't changed. And the biggest change is if the physical body was in pain, you don't have that pain anymore. So that's good. But otherwise, they're the same person they were. They're just in another world. Despite the heartening glory of our true nature spoken of in Scripture, most souls are unaware of their spiritual self. This ignorance or veiling grace is seen in Hinduism as God's purposeful limiting of awareness, which allows us to evolve. This next sentence is a really good one. It is this narrowing of our awareness, coupled with a sense of individualized ego, that allows us to look upon the world and our part in it from a practical human point of view. In other words, we're motivated to act because we identify as being a person who has certain goals in life, who's separate from all other people. So in order for that to happen and not to think of ourselves as omnipresent, unchanging consciousness, which is what we really are, we need to have God's grace veil it from us. So it's purposeful. It's not arbitrary. It's purposeful because it motivates us to have experiences, which we've talked about recently. Ultimate goal of life in the Hindu view is called moksha, liberation from rebirth. Then we got our threefold definition. Moksha comes when earthly karma has been resolved, dharma has been well performed, and God is fully realized. I call that the threefold definition of moksha by Gurudeva. Sometimes he defines it and leaves the dharma well performed out. That's the twofold one. All souls without exception are destined to achieve the highest states of enlightenment, perfect spiritual maturity, and liberation. So that's a good point. How is that possible? Since there's such a huge difference between people, how is it that all souls are destined to achieve the highest states of enlightenment? It's the last part of the sentence. But not necessarily in this life. So everyone gets there eventually, but in a different lifetime. We don't all do it this life, next life. Some have a lot of lives left. Some have fewer lives left. But we'll all get there. That's one of the differences with Western religion, that some people end up in hell for eternity. In Hinduism, no one ends up in hell for eternity. Everyone eventually ends up in heaven. In some Hindu traditions, the destiny of the soul after liberation is perceived as eternal and blissful enjoyment of God's presence in the heavenly realms, a form of salvation given by God through grace, similar to most Abrahamic faiths. So that's like a Vaishnava concept there, you can tell by the graphics. In others, the soul's destiny is perfect union in God, or in the infinite all, a state of oneness. So there we go, we're the drop of water returning to the ocean, and there's no way to get the drop back. That's called Vishvagrasa, final merger in Gurudeva's terminology. So that's the last form of merging with Shiva, which can't be undone. You can't change your mind there. Oh, very good. 6 o'clock here. Stop sharing.